Hi, my name's Hannah, and the natural source of caffeine that I chose to attend a ceremony for is the kola nut. Um, I'll briefly talk about the kola nut and then I'll go into the ceremony that I chose to attend and discuss. So, the kola nut is derived from Western Africa, and there are two different types. Um, the different types are called the Cola acuminate, which is a purplish reddish color, and then there is a grayish colored version that is called the Cola nitida. I might be pronouncing those wrong, but I found that ceremonies that the kola nut is particularly used in include welcoming ceremonies, almost always, weddings, funerals, sometimes used for medical purposes, infant naming ceremonies, and the main thing that the kola nut symbolizes is hospitality, respect, and friendship. I got to attend both a wedding and a welcoming ceremony, and I was going to talk about my experience at the wedding, but after attending, I found that weddings aren't as pleasant in this culture, oftentimes because a lot of times the groom tricks the bride and forces them into marriage. So I thought it'd be more pleasant to talk about the use of a kola nut in a welcoming ceremony because that's a little bit more of a pleasant experience for all parties involved. I found most of my information, by the way, from igboguide.org. So this particular ceremony that I attended took place in Igboland, which is in southeastern Nigeria. And in this specific area of Nigeria, the kola nut is found to have sacred significance. They're about 5 centimeters, and at the beginning of the ceremony, or before the ceremony begins even, the kola nuts are blessed with incantations, which are magic spells or charms, and the thought and purpose behind it is so that the visitors feel welcomed. As I mentioned, they're used for a variety of events, but the main prominent one is to welcome guests to a village or even just to welcome guests into your home. There's a very particular traditional way of breaking them that people follow when hosting or welcoming visitors. And at the beginning, the host presents a plate with kola nuts. The plate can have between 2 to 16 nuts, and they present it to the leader of the delegation, and the leader takes the plate and shows it to the senior member of the entourage, like of the visitors, and the senior member is expected to touch the plate with the right hand, with his or her, probably his right hand, and pass it along from member to member so that everyone gets to see it. And the purpose of him touching it with his right hand was to signify that he did see the nuts and approved of them. And then after everyone is passed the plate of nuts in the visitors group and gets to see them, it goes back to the host, who takes a kola nut and gives it to one of the visitors, saying in a different language, obviously, which translates to when the kola nut reaches home, it will tell where it came from, which I thought was interesting. And then when the visitor is supposed to show the nut to the people in the group, but then it is also supposed to show the nut to people at home as proof of their visit afterwards. But another part of the ceremony is that the oldest man in the audience of the hosting community is typically asked to bless the nuts before they're passed out. And the phrase that he is supposed to say is, whatever good he is looking for, he will see it, which is obviously he says it in their native language, not in English. And an appointed person or the presenter of the nuts will then break the kola nut either with their hands or with a knife. And during this time, the visitors will explain why they're visiting and what their purpose of being there is. Once the kola nuts are broken, first I'll talk about the breaking of the nut. So the more pieces that the nut breaks into, the more prosperity there's thought to be for the people that are receiving it. However, if it only breaks into 2 pieces, that has a really bad significance. So they primarily only use the purplish reddish Cola acuminate nuts for the ceremony, because the gray ones, which are the Cola natitas, typically only break into two, and since that has bad significance, they usually just use the purple ones for the ceremony. However, if the nut breaks into 5 or more pieces, that means prosperity for the visitor and their family. And this didn't happen during the ceremony that I attended, but I heard that if the kola nut is broken into 6 pieces, specifically 6, in some parts of Nigeria there's a separate celebration that's required to celebrate that. And sometimes at this celebration there's even a slaughter of a goat. Some random things I noticed is that the kola nut can only be presented with 2 hands at the same time. You can't just use one hand. And something else I heard during the ceremony was that only men can collect the kola nuts, because the kola tree is associated with man somehow. So only men can climb and pluck the kola tree. Finally, when the kola nuts are distributed after being broken, many ceremonies, including the one I attended, distribute them with palm wine, garden eggs, and or peanut butter, and all 3 of those were present at the ceremony I attended. I found it really interesting, and I really enjoyed it.